The world turns, and with each turn, a change. And each change makes it more complex, unpredictable, enigmatic. The world keeps turning. And from the Pellicer and Heredia practice, we anticipate everything that is going to happen. Brexit, artificial intelligence, new commercial borders, legal tech. The world keeps turning, and it commands the reliance on international lawyers who are capable of interpreting this new reality with integrity, honesty, and transparency, offering answers to so many new questions. Whatever it is, ask us. At Pellicer and Heredia, we know how.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on the 22nd of November 2023. Today, we're going to speak about a very important immigration topic, which is the Nomad Visa. And we're going to discuss as well. We have the whole team. We have invited guests here from Brexpats in Spain. And we're going to try to share the knowledge today about the tax regime, about the immigration side, and about social security. This Nomad Visa really brings the three legs, social security, tax, and immigration together. And it is very important to get proper advice on these topics, because obviously we're talking about saving a lot of money, doing things properly, and getting all the benefits. Okay, I'm going to pass over to, I'm going to introduce, I think we're having problems with the phone, can you listen to me?
Perfectly.
Yeah, okay. Right, I'm going to introduce here on my left-hand side, I have Richard here from Brexpats in Spain. He's the Vice President, and he's happy to share with us some questions and knowledge. Hello, Richard, can you listen?
Hello, everybody, Ignacio, and thank you for inviting me to this seminar. The Nomad Visa is an important subject that keeps coming up.
Right, on the south part of Spain, in Almeria, we have Michael Davies. He's a very well-known lawyer, as you all know. Thank you, Michael. Can you listen?
Hello, Ignacio. I'm actually in Marbella today, but they're south of Spain. South of Spain.
That's very good. Very, very good. Then we have our speaker is Pedro. I think his microphone is off. Pedro, you need to turn it on. I don't know if you're able to listen to us, Pedro.
Hola, Michael, Richard.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Today,
right.
I can discipline.
Good. Right, and then we have on the panel as well, at the moment we have Marta from the tax department, coming from the immigration from our office, and Manuel from our office from social security, because to be honest with you, this is one of the most complex visas we normally deal on a daily basis. And we're lucky to say we managed to get already a few ones, and we started from February. So the amount of paperwork is tremendous. But if you manage to go through it, you get your visa, your family gets the visa, and the tax regime is in your benefit, I really think is worth it. I'm going to pass over to Pedro. Pedro did create a guide, a Nomad Visa guide. It took him a long time to do it. He'll be able to share with you guys. And he's going to just tell you briefly where we are with the Nomad Visa and the cases. Then Richard could just send us his questions about where he's bringing from the forum and from Brexpats in Spain, and Michael could share his situation in Almeria and Andalusia in general, and tell us about talk about this tax regime, and he could tell us a bit about the non-tax regime, no tax resident regime as well. Okay, Pedro, over to you.
Okay, Ignacio. Well, as you've said, I mean, this visa is. I mean, from the beginning, we understood it was going to be like in some way complex, but not as it's being done. There is sometimes too much documentation to prove. And the way about the convention between countries about social security, about the pensions, about the health system, in order to have access to that, in order to inscribe the companies into the Spanish system, or the self-employment that comes here, the professional one comes here and be able to be inscribed. So it has already been more effort, even though it's a bureaucracy, and I understand it's something that needs to be done. And obviously our aim is to give this service, to put the things easier to everyone. But obviously in the beginning in this law, probably the administration was not prepared, but now it's starting to have resolutions. We are starting having resolutions positively and given the Nomad Visa to clients. Having said that, well, what is it? I mean, Nomad Visa is something that I don't have to explain that. But let me just make a brief introduction on this. It was done through law. It's called a startup law in order to make like entrepreneur situation to emerge companies. There is a lot of situation where a digital company could be adapted to a startup law, but this one did modify entrepreneur law. Entrepreneur law is what we have been speaking about many times. For example, the golden visa. No, it's the same situation. The digital nomad visa, it goes through similarities, a lot of similarities of the golden visa. Okay, and obviously this can be applied from a Spanish consulate, and also can be applied physically when you are here. We do it electronically to the Unidad de Grandes Empresas, which translation probably could be said like large companies and strategic unit or office. The visa is for 1 year, and then the residency, when you do it, is for 3 years when it's granted. Okay. Are you able to live in Spain and work remotely in Spain? Perfect. How much time? Well, for the duration of a validity, if it's for a visa for 1 year and then you not renew it, then it stops there, and you renew it for maximum 3 years. Renew it. Sorry, it's the authorization to be resident 3 years, and then renewing after that. Then you will be able to live and work. Okay. What happens if expires the visa? Well, 60 calendar days. This is in most of the visas. You have to apply and renew, apply residency, or apply the renewal of the residency when it comes. Let's say, let's go to the more or less who can apply for that. So we always try to divide into two kind of normal visa. One is for employees, and the other one is for professionals, so self-employment. Employees, so the employee just work for a companies based outside Spain. We also have like this kind of transfer of employees from a company that has a branch in Spain, but the Nomad Visa is not like that. The company is outside Spain, is based outside Spain, and the employee is the one who moves into Spain. Okay, and self-employment, you have your own business as a self-employment, and well, you can telework. There are some limits. You can just work for in Spanish clients maximum 20% of your turnover, but the rest 80% must be from outside Spain. Requirements, obviously not to be legal in Spain when we are applying for that. Be older or legal age over than 18, and not to have any criminal courts in Spain and in the countries that you've been living before. I mean, it's the requirement really says is up to 2 years, but in addition, we need to make a declaration in the last 5 years. So think about the last 5 years, no criminal records. Okay. Obviously, this also listed into the countries that Spain has signed, let's say Europe, in order to not to be eligible in those countries that Spain has signed an agreement on this situation, on these criminal records. Then the public insurance or private health. Public insurance, obviously, when someone comes from a country that the country has a convention between Spain and this country, things are easier. We can apply for a certification of A1 in order to transmit the employee into that country to Spain to work remotely from a company inside. And also there's one which gives like a health access to the health system, being inscribed into the system, but not to have to update it and pay into the system because it's paid already by the country. This is probably the situations where it is giving a lot more problems on the companies or the self-employment, but obviously we work with that, and at this time we understand is getting through, and the ball is running a lot. It's running a lot. And what else we can say? I mean, obviously the employee has to work at least 3 months in the company. The company has to have a validity at least for 1 year. And in case of a professional, well, at least you have to show that you've been working with one client, a couple of clients, at least 3 months. So really the requirements are really soft in these cases. I mean, just validity on company 1 year, 3 months working as you just proof with documents, obviously, on this. But really the requirements are, I would say, soft in these cases. We need to show, obviously, that the relationship of between the company where you're employee and or the companies where you as a self-employment or a professional you are working with. We need to show that. Obviously, the documents, the translations, the sometimes are public documents, the legalizations, the certifications of an employee that has to come to Spain. The S1, for example, that we need to prove that you have right to have access to the social security, to the health system. That gives a lot of documents and translations, and we need to check all that. Criminal records, and in case that do not have access to the social security, in case that you don't have access, because the S1 is not given, because even though there are some conventions between countries, there is no agreement on the health system, then you need to go and get insurance, a policy insurance where it is included hospitalization and co-payments. I'm being really rapid just to make a brief and summarize on this, and what kind of persons can be included. Family members, I would say. Well, a spouse, person in a similar relationship or affection, we call it like partnership, and children who are minors of age and also are financially dependent. This obviously has some criteria, but it's something that we need to check and prove. Okay, dependent relatives in the ascending line, so parents, also take this into account, that we need to prove that there is no other way for them to live alone. So it's something very difficult to get it, but it's something that if we prove it, obviously it will be able to be given. And obviously the family members will be able to join, work in Spain and live in Spain. What else I can say regarding this? I've been very rapid, I understand. Obviously, we will be specifying some of the questions that we may have. And just to say another thing is regarding the proof of the financial means. Even though you are working in a company, even though you show that you are getting a pay slip, you're getting a salary, getting clients are paying you, well, we need to show that you have at least some minimum income. Some minimum income, that's important. We call it 200% of the minimum salary in Spain, which think about is around 2,300 euros. So at least minimum 25,000 euros for the principal application. Then the second family member 75, and each family member after this two will be 25%. How can we prove all this? Well, contract, payslips, certification from a company. That's in some ways simple. The work that you do remotely has to be a work that really can be done remotely, and we can prove that. And we need to have also a letter from the company that shows that you, firstly, if you're an employee authorized to work in Spain remotely, and if it's a company that is your client and you're going to be moving into Spain to work remotely, the type of work you do is not authorized. It's like saying that you will be able to work remotely on these cases. Documents that we obviously the application form, the passport that we need to show in all pages, and the proof of employment and the companies that we say that the timing or the validity of the company, and the activity obviously of the company, and the letter of the company, as I said, And the qualification, I forgot to mention about the qualification. We need to show at least the employment has at least 3 years experience in postgraduate or graduate in companies, or at least 3 years experience on that kind of field of working. Okay, what else? Ignacio, I think more or less this is a brief scenario of a Nomad Visa. Self-employment or employee has to prove the company situation regarding the employment or self-employment, showing that you have clients in order to show that you are really working on them. And obviously it's important to show the access to the social security system, or at least private system with a private insurance.
Okay, thank you very much, Pedro. This is very good. Actually, you did develop a guide here that is going to be sharing your guide, the Nomad Visa guide, for them to go at length. And probably
well, I haven't said anything about taxes, but we will go through that later.
Yeah, most of the questions we're having here, Pedro, I don't know if you want to cover that a bit, because we could clarify a lot of questions. Because on one side, I think Richard brought it up before, we need to study the situation whether you are eligible for Nomad Visa. Out of when we have clients that comes into our office or just video conference, you need to start making a lot of questions. What is the most suitable, the fastest, the easiest, the cheapest, and the less painful procedure? That's number one. But on the other side, Pedro, I mean, we are sharing here the Nomad Visa for non-European citizens, and the tax regime, correct me if I'm wrong, is 24% up to 600,000 euros income from work, correct? That's right. Only income from work. Right. That means the first year, the application year, and 5 more years. So it really gives you probably 6 tax regime years with these low rates if you're having a high income. In Spain, you could go from 0 up to 48%, sliding scale. And this way, you could end up having the 24%.
Yeah, and important on this issue is that you get this benefit when you are an employee of a company, cannot work for a professional as a self-employed.
For self-employed.
And those who are employees and count and get this benefit on these taxes through the following 6 months, whenever they arrive, it is important also that they will not pay any tax regarding any other income. Will pay 24%, well, or maybe more in case their salary is more higher than the 600,000 euros. 24% of the salary. So regarding interest, dividends, capital gains, or any other thing that you may have outside of Spain, that will not be paid in Spain. Will just be paid 24% of the salary. But it doesn't work with the professionals.
Right. So we're talking about a good regime. Now, I have a question here. For Spanish that being away in Spain for more than 5 years, my understanding is that this is applicable, the startup law, the tax regime. So I need everybody to understand, one thing is the visa thing, and within the 6 months, if you apply for this special tax regime, you could benefit from it. So you could still get, as Pedro said, a Nomad Visa for self-employed, but not enjoy the tax regime. So basically, we will all pay the same. Any other Spanish citizen will pay the same, or resident will pay the same. Unless you register within the 6 months from arriving to Spain into this special tax regime. So there is 3 legs here. You need to register in the Social Security. You need to get your visa if necessary, because Pedro, this is still the tax regime, the startup law applies to Spanish people who've been outside Spain more than 5 years, and Europeans as well. So the Europeans could apply for this tax regime, which is the Beckham law, basically, updated at the moment. And but for those who are non-European, they could get this visa, which helps them and their family members in the same visa. So, Pedro, shall we start with all these questions and answer, and probably pass it on to Richard and Michael to see whether they have one, and then we could go on the panel here. Richard, would you like to ask some questions here to start with, or shall we just run through it, and then you both will intervene. I don't know if you want to if we forgot anything, please bring it out now, because it's quite interesting. Everybody needs to understand why is important the Nomad Visa, and what benefits they could get. Because I understand, Pedro, obviously the wealth tax is being pretty much abolished in the Comunidad Valenciana. Michael is enjoying that already in Andalusia and in Madrid as well. But my understanding, Pedro, the tax regime will be only money from work. Is that correct? Nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, the tax regime that we are talking about with this, not just non-European Union citizens, also could be for European Union citizens in the tax regime. I'm talking about, obviously, the Nomad Visa is just for non-EU citizen. And yes, it's a salary. I mean, 24% is for the salary, and from 600,000 euros is 48. I think that's the question that you're asking.
Yeah. So basically, I just want to bring the attention here, Richard. We are mixing here the Nomad Visa, which is the visa for the non-Europeans. But I know you are dealing with a lot of Europeans as well. And these Europeans, once they want to come here, they could apply for this tax regime, even though you're going to the TI or the residency green card, which you could apply for it. That doesn't stop you for applying the special tax regime for working remotely. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the Nomad Visa gets confused. I mean, people, I understand, they get confused because one thing is a visa issue, one thing is a tax. But don't forget, the Spanish that wants to come back, they could use that, and they are Spanish. The Europeans, they could use this tax regime as well. And the non-European could even get his visa, their visas, and the family members benefit as well. Like Pedro said, like exactly the same that golden visa. So and Pedro, the beauty of it, that correct me if I'm wrong, the wife, or obviously the children will not work, but the wife with that visa, she will be entitled to work, or the husband. So let's say one member just gets the Nomad Visa and the other one comes as a family member. But with that visa, it is exactly like a European visa or a residency permit. She's got the same rights, the same rights than everybody else. So she's able to work, not working remotely. She could even find some job around the corner. And my understanding, as the tax will be still for her and for the children, obviously for the family, 24%, correct?
That's right. That's what I understand also.
Okay. Right. Michael, would you like to bring any specific? Or...
Yeah, I just wondered if you'd done the number crunching on just one question, because it's possible for EU citizens to go on the special tax regime just purely for the tax purpose. Have you made the calculation? Obviously, the special tax regime is 24% always up to the first 600,000 euro. We know that the normal system is a sliding scale, starts at 0, goes up to 48%. Have you sort of got a quick, more or less cut-off amount? In other words, a client would come, the question from a client would be something like this. I've sort of just wanted to make sure, I want to just, how much would I have to be making for it to be more beneficial for me to be on the special tax regime than on the simple sliding scale? There must be sort of a cutoff, like you and me often discussed it about, when is it in our interest to set up a company? Well, this is the same. When is it in our interest to go onto the special tax regime? 24% flat rate versus the sliding scale. Have you sort of worked out where the cutoff is?
Yeah, I just think Guillermo,
that's a very good question. Yeah, and I mean, obviously we work with the tax residencies, income tax declarations. I think we probably now, because at the end an average rate to cover will be more than 24%. We have spoken about that, and I think Guillermo, we spoke last time. Around Ignacio, let me if I'm wrong, around 50,000 euros.
50,000, yeah.
Well, yes, it's not very high.
45, okay. Depending on also the situations.
That's important.
But it's 50,000
question. The question is, is it in my interest to sort of start looking into this, versus the normal sliding scale, so that's sort of a figure. So the figure's quite.
This is what Jane was asking as well, Michael. And I think, giving a rough idea, Well, the best thing to do always to do the tax simulation with your accountant. But
Exactly.
given
Yeah.
a rough figure here,
Yeah.
Guillermo just mentioned here, we'll be talking about over 50,000 euros gross.
Okay.
And depending
Yeah.
on the personal circumstances, because it's not the same to have wife and children than being
Exactly.
on your own.
Absolutely. No, it's just a ballpark figure.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
but
basically,
it is a very good question, Michael. Yeah, and you have to take into account. I mean, the scenario really, or when someone comes, he has 6 months, and we study the situation about what is the benefit is resident being as a tax normal regime as being resident or take this benefit of 24%, and what is going to happen in the future? He's going to sell a property. He's going to get capital gain on a lump sum of money of an investment, and he's getting always selling the company in 2 years' time and get a capital gain that may be subject to a tax office in Spain. So this situation,
that's fair. Yeah, they definitely need to have individualized information. I can see that. I can see something else now. Obviously, as you know, I'm not a tax agent. I deal mainly with inheritance matters, but basically, I can see different things here. For example, because of course, if you get on the special regime, does that mean that you're not considered a resident, for example, for claiming the possibility of rolling over the profit of the sale of a main home into something else, for example?
Yeah, you say, Michael? Yeah, you go on, Pedro. Yeah.
So are you asking if let me if I understood the question. You're saying all the rest of the income, what will happen with the rest of the income? You understand that?
Yeah, so if, for example,
it's not taxable,
if you're on the special
taxable.
tax regime, of the 24% deal, let's say that now, you buy a property in Spain, you keep it for 3 years, you think it's your main home, but if you're on the special tax regime, can you sell that one that you can't, if you're a normal tax resident, I can buy a property, keep it for 3 years, I declare it's my main home, and I can roll over the profit into the next one and not pay any capital gains tax. Can you do that if you're on the special tax regime or not?
Well, yeah, Michael, here, the beauty of this special tax regime, you only pay taxes based on income from work, right? Nothing else. The rest is not applicable in Spain. So
you'll be treated as a non-resident if you sell your property.
Correct. That's
you're saying,
basically,
Michael, but the question you're saying, if I understood, is for a property in Spain, not outside of Spain. Is that right?
No, in Spain.
Okay, we haven't had the case still in that situation that someone as a non-resident will be paying as a non-resident tax for capital gain for salary at 24%. And I understand everything that comes from a Spanish territory, in this case, with selling a property in Spain, will be covered in Spain. So the capital gain on that comes from a property in Spain will be paid in Spain. But let me just check it a little bit.
My concern is that if he's benefiting from a Nomad Visa, will he be considered a resident and claim it his main home?
Yeah. Exactly. I see what you mean.
He's more than 3 years. That is a situation why it's important to check, to prevent.
Yeah, you have to look at each individual case. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because for example, somebody calls and says something like, "Well, look, I'm thinking about moving to Marbella." I mean, this isn't very hypothetical. This is something that perfectly will happen. And you have the question. Someone comes and says, I'm thinking to move into Spain. I've got and if he's a British, for example, he says, I'm thinking about getting the Nomad Visa with the special tax regime, 24%. I make €200,000 a year or £180,000. I've read up on it. The special tax regime looks like the right thing, the visa for me. But I also want to buy myself a villa in Estepona, keep it for 3 or 4 years, and then sell it, and I may move to another larger property. Can I say to him safely, well, yeah, the Nomad Visa is the right thing for you? Or do I have to say the Nomad Visa is the right thing for you, but be aware you're not going to be able to roll over the investment into another property?
No, I don't think it happens in that case, is it? So it will be as a non-resident, will be paying capital gain tax.
He will say, yeah. So there's a lot of different moving parts. A lot of different moving parts. Yeah.
I mean, my understanding is in Spain is going to be taxed. Okay, the sale of that property, Michael, with all the benefits. But anything you do outside Spain is not taxable in Spain.
Yes, but if he's here on a Nomad Visa, is he going to be able to claim claim it's his main residence and do the rollover? That's what my question is.
You're saying basically claiming being exempt. So me buying a
Yes,
property in
if you buy a
Spain,
property for
Reinvest it in
€200,000,
another property, yeah.
you
If it
sell
will be
it, buy
treated
another
like-
main home within the 2 years, it's exempt if you're a Spanish resident. Is it exempt if you're just here on a Nomad visa?
yeah, this is Guillermo. This is a good question for you, probably. I don't know if you listened to Michael, but basically, if one guy who applied for a Nomad visa bought a property in Spain, obviously, if we are resident in Spain, you know, we have the 3 years to register here in Spain, and after 3 years, we could sell it and reinvest it within 2 years, tax free, if we are below 65 years old. The question probably Michael is bringing is.
Yeah, we could also take the question to somebody that's going to move over when he's 63, buy himself a property with intention of selling after he's 65, and not even have to roll over the profit. But if it's on a Nomad visa, can we do that? Probably not.
Yeah, right. Okay, but I'll leave it to Guillermo. He's going to do some research what we are carry on, Michael, here, because his first understanding, he says here that he takes it like the bad part if he doesn't consider you like a habitual property.
Yeah,
but since it's, you know, but probably that's. But is a good question, Michael. But let's see whether Guillermo could bring some question from the tax office and yeah, Richard, you've got some questions and the microphone is off.
Yeah, it's really just for clarification with Pedro. Where we've got a number of our members asking this question, where they are directors of a company, but not salaried. They are on directors' remuneration, which is flexible based on the profits of the company. How do they stand with regards to tax? And the second part of that question is where they are directors of multiple companies, and again, they are on directors' remuneration or maybe expenses as well. Where do they stand with regards to tax? We have to bear in mind they are not salaried.
There is no, but sometimes even though there is no salary, there is an employment contract. So the agreement between the company and the director is through an employment rule. If it's a salary or if it's a different kind of remuneration, that's another issue. But at least has to have employment relation. This is why, I'm a director, I'm an employee, or I'm a director, I'm not an employee of a company, my collaboration, well, that we need to define that situation. But the rules in the Nomad visa is clear. You are an employee and you have to show that you're an employee. It doesn't, one of the issues, obviously, the employment contract, the salary, the pay slips, at the end, the remuneration that you get, maybe some periods of time. But imagine that someone gets a remuneration variable, because the employment contract and the relationship between the rights of employee, according to the country, are as an employment through an employment law, then it's employee of the company, even though it's a director and do not have a salary. So that needs to be defined. And this is why in many cases, we have had some cases like that you're saying, we need to apply for more information, to apply for some letters, to apply for some to the company at the end to show that really is an employee, even though it's a SEO, CFO, something like, show maybe they don't have a salary, like a payslip salary every month, but they have a different kind of remuneration.
Yeah, well, that would be a director's.
Oh, that's a good question. Obviously, I'm telling you this with my experience, but sometimes I have some doubts also on this.
It's interesting that one of the chat questions is from Mark, who's asked roughly the same question. He's a director of 2 companies, but unpaid, but he earns money through pension and rental properties. And it's a similar situation because under director's remuneration, you are not shown as salaried. It's a payment once a year, basically.
Yeah, at least if you show that at the end, because the proof is really 200% of a minimum salary is really per year. So at the end, if you show a remuneration, it doesn't have to be every month, at the end, if you show that at the end, you will be able to prove, in this case as an employment, a minimum amount of money per year, I think is it covers. In this case, it's unpaid. I understand it's unpaid on salary, but will be paid in some way. Per year, per profit, per variable, but whatever is the agreement between the company and employee. But that's really the concept that we need to show is an employment relation, really.
Guillermo is saying here, he's trying to look into it, right? If we're talking about, so far the applicable law states that there is no extension. So you cannot consider.
So this is what we said, yeah. Is the consultation, if someone wants to look at it, is V0384-10. This is it's like binding resolutions of a tax office.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end is but the question is really good, Michael. And I didn't thought also the latest question you make, it was really good about if you are 63 years. So this is why it's important to cover the scenario on the.
But I understand, Pedro, but it's not great in that respect. But if you're paying 24%, it's good. And then if you sell, you're paying 19% because that's going to be treated 19% as a non-resident for sale. I know that's not very good because, well, obviously is not great. That's the bad part of it. And dividends as well. Richard, if you were getting dividends from the company, it will be taxed
in
19%.
Spain.
Yeah.
Spain.
Yeah.
Did you say?
Correct.
I'm sorry. Did you say you'd be taxed at the 24% on dividends?
No.
No.
We just said 19% on dividends in Spain.
Right.
Yeah. If the dividends are paid from, let's say, in the UK, is not taxable in Spain. 24% only income from work. And then selling your main property, like Michael was saying, here it will be 19%, unfortunately, in that respect.
And sorry, just again for clarification, the double taxation agreement does apply. So you would pay the tax here, but not in the UK.
Obviously, at the end you come resident in Spain, you pay. Well, at the end you are really resident in Spain, but you get the benefit of taxes.
For that tax regime.
As a non-resident for the salary. What happens with the dividends or interest is that, or capital gain or an inheritance that you may get. Well, inheritance is another question that you may get in this case in the UK. Well, that's the double taxation agreement. I mean, should be paid and will be paid in the UK.
Now, after 600, Richard, it goes 45%.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I think Pedro already said, it's like a flat rate, isn't it, Pedro? It will be considered like a resident with a special regime. I see that way. It's a mixture, a little bit of a mixture here. But I still think they're better off than any of us, I think. Don't you think, Michael? Yeah.
No, from the Spanish point of view, and I don't really know how it works in their home country. There's one thing that's sort of more or less clear to me, and that is that the best that if you're making anywhere between sort of 70 or 80,000 up to 600,000 euro a year, and you're not sort of going to buy a property and things like that, so there are other ingredients to throw in, then I'd say it's, as far as Spain's concerned, it's the best deal around. That would be the situation. So if you are going to buy property and things like that, well, then you need to just consult with the lawyer what you're going to do, because maybe you want to become be on the Nomad Visa first, then you become a resident, then you wait 3 years. I mean, there's all different ways around all these things that would need to be discussed. But if you like, the sort of the easy, the low lying fruit would be somebody that's sort of in London and thinking, well, I'm going to move over to Spain. So I want to go abroad. I'm going to live near a golf course down there in Estepona or up in your area. I always try to bring them down here. And I'm going to work remotely, and I'm going to make anywhere between sort of 70, because below that it depends on the circumstances, etc. But above that, it's clearly more beneficial than paying the sliding scale like all of us do, and we all end up paying much more than on the Nomad Visa, because that's just the way it works. So for them, I think it's a great deal.
Mhm.
I think the perspective that I've come out of this, Michael, is this is not something you take on lightly. And if you're going to go for the Nomad visa, I think you need to seek qualified advice before you do it.
Yes, you need to speak
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
you need to speak to someone about the visa. That's one thing, the require, how to get the visa. But really, you need that I think you need a firm that at the same time is going to tell you all the tax consequences for you and your circumstances. And I think that's the way to go.
That's the complex of it, Michael, because as I said, you need to touch the immigration, you need to touch the tax, and you need to tax the social security, because to get all these sorted,
and the social security,
and the social security as well, to get your register here or register you here as self-employed if necessary when there is no agreement between countries. Because sometimes, for example, in the UK, there is an agreement for social security, so they could pay in the UK, and you don't need to pay his social security, so the company covers that. But in some countries, Michael, I think we did one Nomad Visa, Marta dealt with it, and it was Costa Rica. I think there was no agreement, and you need to register here self-employed from a social security point of view.
Okay.
So there is no regime, and then you do it as self-employed, registering here, because the country wouldn't pay. So it's quite complex. I agree with you, Michael.
I hadn't even thought about Social Security. And as far as the medical, obviously, if you join the Social Security, you probably join the medical as well. But if you don't join the Social Security, as far as a private medical, have you sort of got an indication of sort of just, I know obviously it depends on medical situation, but sort of just average sort of prices of medical coverage that will qualify us for the Nomad Visa or the Golden Visa? I imagine it's the same one. What sort of price range are we for a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old?
If you say, Michael, if they're paying from the UK to Spain, let's put it the UK, they just pay. You don't need to pay anything. Now, if you register here as self-employed, you just pay like a self-employed person. But I really don't know if, because in the old days, Michael, you remember there was no sliding scale with the self-employed. Yeah. But I think this is a question for Manuel and Marta. Whether, I don't know if Marta is there, whether when you register self-employed, is it linked to your income as a requirement here or not? I really don't know that question, Michael. I don't know whether Marta
with the Golden Visa and things, is there a way around them not getting private medical then? Can they do it any other way? Or with the
Nomad Visa, you still need the private. Nomad Visa, you still need the private.
You still need to
as a requirement. You still need the private for the Nomad Visa. You still need the private as a requirement, because the requirement for Nomad Visa, you still need the non-criminal records. You still need for the first year the insurance. Okay, that's a requirement as like the non-lucrative visa or the Golden Visa, unless you join the system. And then once you join the system, then you don't need the social security, the health, private health.
And when can they join the system? How long do they have to be on private medical before they can join the system?
The private medical, let's say in different type of visas, before you need to be 1 year in the Padron to be able to join the public. Okay. So that's. But as I said, Michael, this is it's very efficient. I mean, I'm very glad. I mean, we managed to get, I think already, and Michael, we've been working from January, because the law started in January, and we've been working a lot, and we already had, we launched a lot of them. They're still queuing because they don't, in Madrid, they still don't know sometimes how to resolve the issues, so eventually will be much smoother. But we managed to get at least a few already positive ones, which is very good. And Marta is saying here, Michael, that it really, when you do this social security, you've got an allowance, but it's linked to your income. But you've got an allowance, 80 euros per month during 12 months. That's how the law stands now, right? That's for people linked who don't have the agreement with the country. Yeah. Okay. I believe Carmen, I don't know if Carmen is listening here, but I think United States or Pedro, they have an agreement with Social Security, isn't it?
Let me show if I can right now.
Because the problem, Michael, here is
can you see the page?
Oh, here.
Yeah.
This is the public administration social security. I don't know if you can see it. These are the countries that we have a convention. Okay, and you said
so
about
United States is there, yes, and Canada.
Okay, and at the end is all information. The public information is here. In this case, with the United States.
I mean, there are a few. They're not hundreds. I think we could probably have 30 agreements, but that's good.
It doesn't appear the United Kingdom in this case, but because it's not really as a convention, like that. It's like a protocol from the European Union, but it's like the same. In this case, for United Kingdom, it's like the same. It doesn't appear the flag there, but it's like the same.
Right. Let's move on, and then have as I said, Michael, is lengthy on paper.
It's definitely complicated. I mean,
it's complicated.
When we have these chats now and the Law Society, talk to other lawyers, everyone's all over the shop with this. Nobody seems to. I mean, I think you guys are because you're doing, I think, more than anyone else at the moment. So you're sort of closer to the truth of exactly how it's all tied up. But people are a bit all over the shop with the
problem with this, Michael. You see, you need to have somebody in connection on a daily basis with Social Security, because you know how crazy it is to
they keep changing things, and
and then they change. Social Security change a lot, and then you need to deal with like a dual agreement between countries, as Pedro showed. Then you need to see, as you said, whether it was worth it, this visa, because obviously with an interview with the client, you could see whether it's worth it to apply for this tax regime or not. Or probably, Michael, if you're married to a European, then we will not go with that visa, but you could still go with the tax regime or not. So but it's quite good, because in the long term, doing tax planning, we're talking about saving a lot of money, if applicable.
No, of course. I can see that it could save somebody. If someone is making €400,000 a year for over 5 years, I mean, 24 compared to 48%. I mean, we're talking about a difference. There's no doubt. Yeah.
And even Michael as well, for people who probably you don't need necessarily to apply for this tax regime. So as I said, this is worth it when you go about €50,000. But let's say if you still are working and you're getting only 25 or 30. It's still worth it, because that visa is a very lengthy visa as well. They could give you 3 years, isn't it, Pedro? The renewal of the visas here, isn't it 355?
1 year, then visa, then 3 years authorization of residency, and then every 2 years.
So it's 3-2. So 1-3-2-2-2. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Shall we just, Pedro, I don't know, Michael or Richard, will you select any other question that you think is quite relevant? I know.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Linda, for asking. I mean, I think we have already answered that. Is obviously when you move to Spain to as a Nomad Visa, even though you get the benefit on tax regime, this 24% that we said, or you just pay regularly as a tax resident in Spain. But obviously, once you move into Spain with a Nomad Visa and as a resident, you will have to pay taxes in Spain.
But I don't know, because I don't know if Linda, she says that only getting paid.
And then in Spain, that's
no money.
Point. No money in Spain, obviously. Or any salary that she may get in the UK, obviously, this is what will be taxed in Spain. Okay. What else? Oh, there's a question that we already answered also regarding what is more advantageous than the normal tax resident.
Yeah, we covered that, Pedro. I mean, at the end of the day, the people need to understand that the visa goes one way and the tax is different. The good thing is you could use it both, be ready for both, or just only take whatever is benefit for you. You see, so that's for Jane probably. If you don't reach the 50,000, then probably it is worth not even applying for that, for the tax regime. It's all about figures. Michael said it's all about doing tax simulation with a specific scenario and see what is the most advantageous.
Okay, from Mircea, thank you for the question. I mean, it says it has both British and EU citizenship. Would apply using my British citizenship as I live and hide in the UK. Yes, that's right. It should be applied in this case by the British in the Nomad Visa in these cases. But also has an EU passport. Also could have a opportunity to do it in a different way. But to work remotely through the Nomad Visa should be done by the British passport. Okay.
But you've got a European passport, Pedro. You don't need that visa, do you?
Yeah, but is she saying he or she is saying it regarding UK citizen, a UK passport, working in the UK company, and in order to apply for the Nomad Visa and get this, obviously we'll be able to get anyway as a European Union passport or not the tax benefit. But in this case, I will use the British passport to apply for the Nomad Visa in case you want to.
Yeah, I think
about the double national. Sorry,
Andrew is saying here, as a self-employed, could you apply for the tax regime? And I really think it is not possible, isn't it, Pedro? Because
no.
I'm going to make a quick observation here. One of the things that we're encountering is people going to the consulates in the UK to inquire about the Nomad Visa, and they're being told, oh, it's simple, there's no problems. And they're being told of the paperwork they've got to do, but nobody is mentioning to them this tax issue. And that, you know, people can walk into a disaster with this.
I agree.
Yeah. People need to look into all the different options they've got. You know, they've got the Nomad Visa, non-lucrative visa, become a resident, become a Spanish national. There are just so many, so many different options now, and each one. I mean, so you know, we're dealing with these sort of things all day. But I don't deal with any immigration things, but Ignacio, Pedro do. And I just deal with inheritance thing. But, you know, we deal with these things every day, and every day something else turns up that, you know, if we do it that way, and suddenly this happens, they get divorced, and then we didn't realize that there's a consequence for that. And, you know, there are all these different angles. So
the best thing is to put everything on the table, and everybody makes their own choice. Yeah.
But I think at minimum, whoever's going to jump into one of these things should really book a consultation with somebody like you guys up in Alicante or Valencia, Ignacio or Pedro, or with somebody else. But it does definitely deserves to simply sit down with somebody that sort of knows what they're doing and go through the foreseeable consequences of what one's doing.
But in fact, we're going to put an article out about this in Brexpats in Spain, because it is clear. I already knew it, but it is clear from this seminar that that's what you've got to do. If you don't, you've got trouble.
Look, I'm going to tell you about something that, these sort of consequences of things that people do. Lots of people, when Brexit came about, became Spanish nationals because they just applied for Spanish national because they've been here for many years, and it was a good thing, because it resolved many problems. But there's sort of a sidekick to this, which affects my sort of expertise, which is inheritance. Spanish people can't leave everything to their spouse if they've got children. They're not allowed to. Okay, 2/3 have to go down to the kids. Now, there's a law. There's a law that permits foreigners of other countries that when they make their will in Spain, they can choose their national law to determine how they can distribute their estate. So what we've all been doing for years, British people simply on their will here say they choose their English law, and therefore then they can do what they want, which is to leave everything to their wife Mary, and and that's the end of the story, like they would in the UK. Those people that have become Spanish and they say to me, "Oh, but I've still got my British passport. I've got it at home in my drawer," and they have. But Spain does not accept double nationality. So when they make their will in Spain now, they have to be considered only Spanish. And therefore, if they've made a will, leaving everything to their wife, Mary, because that's what they've always wanted to do, now when they pass away, Mary goes to inherit. The notary realizes that he was Spanish. As far as Spain, he was only Spanish. And that choice of law that he made is null and void. He cannot choose his English law. And therefore, regardless of how Mary gets on with the kids, which could be from her marriage or cases like we've seen from other marriages, she's not going to get the whole estate. She's going to get what she's entitled to, which is just over 1/3 of what he owned. And we've seen obviously this affects very few people, but you know
there is always an angle, Michael. Yeah, as you
if
said,
they'd asked me in advance about becoming Spanish nationals, I would have told them that is one of the consequences. But of course, if they've just gone in and asked, I want to get a Spanish national, well, you know, I would have told them that. I wouldn't have realized it would have caused tax problems. I don't know about tax issues. I know about inheritance. So there are just so many little things. And that's why at least, though, go to someone that at least is an expert in most of those things. There's definitely, if you're going to do a visa, somebody that knows about immigration and somebody that knows about tax, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else, Pedro? We're ready to go?
Nothing else. Really good point about what Michael has said is at the end, just to study and prevent situations. That I fully agree. And regarding the applicable law, regarding all these situations that may happen in the future, it's important to prevent and check and expect what is could be the situations. It is just obviously the recommendation on taking into account immigration, taxes, in this case, the Nomad Visa, also the case of the company or self-employment, what to do on having access to the Social Security, to inscribe as an activity, as a professional, or as with the company needs to be inscribed. All these situations is important to check, but as we said, tax is important, and the immigration issue, all the requirements are extremely important.
Well, how many times
as well? Sorry.
How many times have we discussed over the years, you know, since we were doing these webinars, you know, in the old days, we had the importance of where you decided to retire in Spain was going to make such a tremendous difference to inheritance tax. And we've had people call us and thank us because when they were buying the property, they had no idea that the inheritance tax was completely different if you bought in one area or if you bought in another. And even these things change over the years. Now in Valencia region, there's a very good system regarding inheritance tax, very generous, like in Andalusia. For years, it was different. So there are a lot of things that people just need to know about, and unfortunately, sometimes they don't. And it's not all the same, you know. Oh well, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, what happens is going to happen anyway. Whatever I do, no, it doesn't work that way. Things will work out differently depending on your choices.
Right, I'm going to just leave with you here the email just in case you want to speak with in the panel. Richard is the vice president in Brexpats in Spain. If you want to just contact him, then we're going to just send you here our emails in case you need to send us anything specific for a consultation if necessary. And I did post here Pedro's just create a guide, a summary, which I find it is very, very interesting for you to download it. And then Richard, I did copy and paste here the link to our blog where we talk about the benefits of the Beckham law, which is being already. So for those who are interested only on this applicable law, which is it now, that's the most summary. I mean, we try to make things simple, even though things are complex. But this is as much as we could give in the guide and in the blog. And as you said here, it's quite complex. And I thank you all. I thank you for the nice messages that you guys are sending. I think we're going to just pass it on to Juanfran, and hopefully we're going to see you all in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much for your attention, people. Richard, Michael, Pedro, and the whole team in the panel. I'm going to leave it to Juanfran, and then see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're new to Spain and in need of legal help. When you're in a country that is foreign to you, you want someone who speaks your language, who understands you, and who will have an answer to all immigration and nationality matters. At Pellicer and Heredia, you can count on a specialist in international law and a multidisciplinary team that can help you handle all the necessary formalities. Do you want to take advantage of the Golden Visa program? We will help you obtain the residence visa for investors through the purchase of a property or via a business project that you're looking to develop in Spain. Do you need a residence permit? Obtain it for non-profit purposes or through family, work, study, research and training purposes. If, on the other hand, what you are looking for is a renewal, we take care of the whole process, so all you need to do is leave your fingerprint. We also deal with re-entry permits in the case that you want to leave and return to Spain. And of course, we help you obtain the certificate of registration as a European citizen, the foreigner's identity number, Spanish citizenship, and the certified translation of documents in all languages. Because at Pellicer and Heredia, we know that speaking your language is the only way to gain your confidence. Trust that we repay with 2 words: professionalism and commitment. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.